2nd, John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Hello, all YouTubers. Let me get your chat pulled up. Here we go. Oh, no, your chat is pulled up. There you are. Hello, all. Hello. Good to see everybody. Let me get, there we go. I got a little brightness. I can see you better. Let me get my TikTok rolling. I didn't put my eye drops in. I kind of like the eye drops in. It just helps. Let me get TikTok rolling here. All right, TikTok. We can get our censorious overlords. Oops, didn't put my goal up. One moment here. All right. 1 second. Oh, that's cute. Well, we can try that. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up my TikTok thing as we speak here. Oh, that should be okay. Let's do 6. Why not? All right. Boom. All right, let me get TikTok rolling. Go live. There we go. All right. There we are. Mirror image. Boom. TikTok is live. Hello, all. How are we doing today? Oh, let's turn up my volume. There we go. Okay. Yes, YouTube volume is back to normal, so give it a second to adjust. TikTokers. All right. There you are. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Ash. Hey, TikTokers. How you guys doing today? How are you? I am good. James joined us. Excellent. Hello, all. Well, so how are things today? Hey, Ash. We don't have a ton of news. There's interesting news. There's actually several interesting stories today. It's not a ton of news. It's a few news. It's like little news, but it's actually very interesting news, I think, today. So, exactly. Every time we bow to the overlords, an angel loses its wings or something horrible. Hey, John. Hey, Critter. Thank you guys and Annette. Thank you guys for the gifts. Appreciate those. Thank you so much. Oh, wow. Anyway. Hey, Succeed. Gamma. Thank you guys. Lots of gifts today on TikTok. Thank you guys. Thank you, Jen. And YouTubers, how you guys doing? Norway. Kenneth in Norway. Hey, Kenneth. How are you? Actually, you know what? We haven't done that in a while, guys. Tell me where you're all from. Because I always like to do that at the beginning of the show, and I haven't done it in a while. Hey, Joyce. Hey, Alan. And it's also a good way just to kind of get people to check in and put up some comments and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, the storm has... I am only learning about this storm thing people are talking about. I saw the Midwest was getting it, but we're getting thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon, but I didn't realize it was supposed to be that bad. I guess it is, which I did not know, which kind of sucks because my dog gets very annoyed. Even now with it being overcast and a little rainy, she's not happy. So, but I know tomorrow afternoon. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, Jetta. I know tomorrow we're supposed to get rain. I just didn't see how bad of rain, but maybe it's worse than I thought. Oh, well. Anyway. All right, guys. Welcome all. I am going to start. So welcome, everybody. I am John Aravosis. Oh, Angelina in Ukraine. Welcome. We especially like our Ukrainian friends, of course, here. So the show is the Aravosis Report. Basically, my background is in politics, media, foreign affairs, writing, journalism, and I have a law degree. I have a master's of international relations. I've written for The Economist. I've worked in the U.S. Senate, worked at the United Nations, all sorts of crazy places, and decided a little over 2 years ago that I would put that to use doing the show on TikTok. I'd started TikTok maybe a year before, but I wasn't doing lives. And just decided when the war broke out that I would do a live, using my background in foreign policy and everything, and also journalism to hopefully explain things for folks. Thank you, Christine. And it just kind of grew from there. So that's what the show is. So welcome all. We will be covering Ukraine today like we always do. And the way the show works is I will go through the news of the day. And then second half of the show, I take your guys' questions, take your comments, all of that. Sometimes in the middle, I'll get comments from you as well. I mean, because there's a lot of comments on the screen, but I sort of prepare some notes for the show first. So I will often try to go through my notes first and then take your guys' comments, but feel free to put them there. Thank you, Martin. Sometimes I see it. So if I see it and it's kind of relevant to what I'm talking about, I could take your comment then. On YouTube, there's one special way you can jump in on YouTube. Thank you, Arifa. Anybody who does a YouTube super chat question, I will always get to those as the next thing I talk about. So that's good. Thank you, MC. I know where hope springs eternal. But yeah, so on YouTube, super chat question, I always get to that as the next thing I talk about. Beyond that, thank you, Jane. I very much appreciate your gifts on TikTok, like Jane just did. William just did with the rose as well. Arifa, thank you, by the way, too, and William. And also the super chat, super questions, etc. on YouTube, because I do this for free, guys, and your gifts help me keep doing this. So this is my full-time job. Been trying to make a living doing this, and it's been going okay. It's been going okay. It depends on the month. Some months are good, some months are bad, but on average, it's pretty good. So that's why I Hector you. I saw Hector's name, and I thought the word Hector is perfect. Thank you for the gift, Hector, by the way. That's why I Hector you for the gifts, to use Hector's name, because I do this full-time, and it helps out. No, not required. Everything's free. But if you can help me out, I appreciate it. So thank you. Let's get rolling, guys. So today is day 768 of, actually, it might be 769. I think I updated that. Now I'm worried I didn't. Of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation in Ukraine. Thank you, Marie. Really interesting breaking news from the Washington Post today. Minutes ago. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Lori. So the Washington Post reports that U.S. officials, thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Brandon, that U.S. officials told the Russians 2 weeks before the terrorist attack. Okay, big terrorist attack in Moscow like a week ago, right? We're all familiar with that. Really bad. Looks like it was ISIS. They opened fire on civilians at a place called the Crocus City Hall. It's a shopping mall that also has a big concert venue. There were like 6,000 people there getting ready for a concert. These terrorists opened fire, killed civilians, killed at least 140 people, injured several hundred. Thank you, Carla, and thank you, James, for the gift on YouTube. Injured hundreds of people. The Americans and the Brits warned the Russians privately and then warned publicly that an attack was imminent 2 weeks before the attack. It was very interesting that the Brits and the Americans, the embassies, issued statements, because clearly we went to the Russians privately. And apparently in international law, there's this duty to warn. And countries do it. I mean, Iran, the US, like even with countries that we're not friends. Thank you, Courtney, for the gift, by the way. Even countries that we're not friends with, we warn each other if we hear of an imminent attack, right? It's just something you do to be a good player. And Russia, by the way, Russia's done it with us too. Russia warned us about, thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Joyce. Russia warned us, thank you, DMR, about the Boston Marathon bomber. One of the Tsarnaev brothers, the Russians had warned us about him previously and said this guy's like a terrorist or something, and we dropped the ball on him. We dropped the ball on that warning. Like we didn't follow through. So, anyway, even though our relationship can be rocky, we share these things. So the U.S. goes public and warns publicly that there's an imminent attack in Moscow. What was interesting about that to me was it felt to me like the Russians weren't taking our warning seriously privately, and that's why the Brits and the Americans felt the need to go public, because we felt the need that basically we had a duty to warn Americans who might be in the country that something was coming. Thank you, Courtney, because the host country wasn't doing enough to sort of protect, right? Thank you, Joyce. So Putin turns around 3 days before, so this is 2 weeks before the attack. Thank you, Pedro. 2 weeks before the attack, the U.S. and the Brits come out and say, imminent attack, right? And possible concert venue. It talked about concert halls, it mentioned even. 3 days before the attack, Putin comes out and excoriates the U.S. and Britain and says, basically, how dare you put out this statement? It's a lie. It's a lie that there's an imminent terrorist attack in Moscow, and you're doing it just to mess with my country. And I'm paraphrasing, but that he accused us of blackmail and trying to destabilize Russia by putting out lies. 3 days later, horrific terrorist attack happens. Thank you, Ava. Since the attack, the Russians have been saying two main things. One is that the Ukrainians are to blame, and three things, I guess. One is the Ukrainians are to blame, and the Brits and the Americans are to blame too. They tried to blame all of us. It was ISIS. Everyone thinks it was ISIS. ISIS keeps telling them it was ISIS. But they also keep claiming, and the Russians did it again today, which is why I think this article came out in the Washington Post today. The Russians said again today, one of the top Putin officials said today, the warning wasn't good enough. The warning the Americans gave was too general. They simply said there might be an attack somewhere, right? They couldn't say when, they couldn't say where. And they're trying to basically say that, what we did wasn't that courageous of a thing. It wasn't that great of a thing what we did because we didn't really give them any info. More importantly, the Russians are trying to CYA, as we say in English, cover their behind, because it looks really bad for Putin that he got warned about this attack and the attack happened, right? Especially as any government, that would be a problem. Like in a democracy, that would be a problem. But in an authoritarian country, in a country that is not a democracy like Russia, it's even more important, thank you, James, for the person in charge, and thank you, Zoe, for the tiny diny, for the person in charge to be seen as strong, to be a strong man, right? You can't be a strong man and let terrorism happen on your watch because it undercuts your authority. Takes us to today. So the Russians come out today and yet again say the American warning wasn't specific. They didn't even tell us where it was going to happen. So the Americans went public. Biden clearly approved this. U.S. officials went to the Washington Post, and they let the Washington Post know that, in fact, we told the Russians several possible venues by the way, we said it was ISIS. We had told them it was ISIS 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before the attack. We also told them several specific locations that we heard ISIS might be attacking. Thank you, Vicky. One of the locations we told the Russians that ISIS was preparing to attack was the Crocus City Hall. The actual venue that ISIS attacked and killed all these people, we gave the Russians the name of the venue, according to U.S. officials talking to the Washington Post this afternoon. This story is a big deal. It's a big deal, first of all, because it's incredibly embarrassing. Well, I mean, it's a big deal because it's incredibly embarrassing to Putin. Guys, there was, according to the videos that were public, there was no obvious security at this concert hall. At this, it was a concert hall and a shopping mall, right? Thank you, Super Hornet. There was another gift here too. I want to make sure I didn't miss Vicky and James. Thank you, guys. There was no obvious security at this place. Once the attacks started happening, it took half an hour for Russian special forces to get there, and then they sat there for half an hour and did nothing. Russian special forces didn't attack until an hour after the attack was underway, and half of that hour they were there doing nothing, okay? This is what, I mean, to me, this is a very big story. It undercuts Putin. It makes Putin look bad, obviously. But, you know, anyway, just that. I just wanted to bring it up because I was kind of like, this is a wild story. Thank you, Chris. And interesting that U.S. intelligence was that good, that we knew it was ISIS, and we at least knew among the locations that were possible places to be attacked, this place. Because bottom line, guys, if you're given a list of 5, 10 places that ISIS is going to attack, you put more security there. Actually, you do a couple things. You put more security, and maybe you even go, not that you want to go public with it, but maybe you even go public. Because going public, well, the problem is if you go public, then no one's going to that shopping mall is the problem. But if you go public, ISIS is going to probably have to change their plans. At the very least, you put increased security at those malls and things. Thank you, Sean. And they didn't do it. Just wild. Now, Bink asks a good question that I'm sure our overlords would not be very happy about. But Bink asks, do you think he wanted this to happen, meaning Putin? Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Kronos. Thank you, Vicky. I don't know. But like I said, I don't think our overlords would be very happy with that discussion. Your overlords are fine. Your overlords, not so happy. But that's a very interesting question, Vic. That's a very interesting question. I will say this. I do not understand, as I'm now getting water on my computer keyboard, that's bad. I do not understand why Putin would not take the warnings seriously. Sorry, guys, getting a little bit there we go, a little bit of water off my keyboard. That will really upset me if I ruin my keyboard with water. One moment, la la la. In like 2 years of doing the show, I have not done this before. I'm doing it now. It's very strange. I think what is strangest to me is, now we know the U.S. warnings were not vague. Right? So I'm like cleaning my keyboard as I talk to you guys. Now we know the U.S. warnings were not vague. We know the U.S. had said ISIS. We know the U.S. had said among the possible venues was this specific location. I don't know how, if you're Russians, you don't have increased security at that venue. I just don't know how I don't know how, if you're Putin, you reach that decision to not have security. And the other thing is, how are the special forces not available for an hour? Right? You're warned imminent terrorist attack. And you're warned of the locations. At the very least, you split some forces up and keep some nearby those locations for the next month or something, right? How do you not do that? I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. Wang says it sounds like the warnings we had before 9/11 to some degree. Now, before 9/11, the warning was the month before, I believe it was early August, bin Laden determined to strike in the United States. I believe, I might even be quoting actually exactly, that was the memo. That was the title of the memo. I mean, the substance, I don't remember, meaning I don't remember the exact quotes, but I remember the title was Bin Laden determined to strike in the United States. The problem is, it's not like they said Bin Laden determined to strike in the United States, and here's a list of 5 possible targets. One of them is Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C. The other is Newark in New Jersey. Right? It's not like they said this specific airport he's going to go after in the next 2 weeks. Right? Did it mention planes? I didn't remember that, Allie. Did it? Did it? Oh, it did mention planes. Did it mention planes? I don't remember that. Did it, though? I don't mean to question you guys, but that... I'm going to pull this up, actually, because now you got me curious. Hang on a second. Bin Laden determined to strike. Hopefully that'll pull up the memo. Let me pull this up really quick and just to see, because now I'm curious. Bin Laden determined to strike in U.S. was a President's Daily Briefing. Oh, it was from the PDB, the President's Daily Briefing. From the CIA, briefing warned 36 days before September 11th of terrorism threats from Osama bin Laden, including patterns of suspicious activity. Oh, okay, I forgot about that. You guys are right. Including patterns of suspicious activity in this country consistent with preparations for a hijacking of U.S. aircraft. Holy cow. Okay, I did not even remember. You guys are right. I didn't remember that it mentioned the hijacking. I mean, at the time, I'm sure I remembered, but it's been 23 years. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Then actually, you're right. It's very much, it very much is like that memo that Bush kind of ignored too. Yeah. Very interesting. And Annie, thank you for the gift membership that Christian just picked up. Thank you for that. One of the cool things you guys can do, which Annie just did over at YouTube, is you can buy gift memberships on YouTube and TikTok, and basically they're memberships that other people can pick up. You buy, each membership you buy is for 1 month, so you're not going to get charged after that, but you're basically able to gift somebody a membership to the Aravosis Report for a month. It gives them access to the emojis. I've got like special emojis you all can use. I always tell you guys when I tell you this, the subscribers throw the emojis on the screen so people can see. Your name changes, like on TikTok, on YouTube, your name becomes green, so I know you're a subscriber. On YouTube, TikTok, can't even speak English here. On TikTok, you get the SNN next to your name for Sasha News Network. So again, I know you're a subscriber. And you get to join our Saturday show. I do a show every Saturday, except when I'm traveling, which I'm going to be doing in a few weeks to Asia for 2 weeks. But otherwise, every Saturday-ish, I do a show at 11 a.m. Washington, D.C. time that's just me and you guys. And we just hang out, and it's nice. And I update you on Ukraine. Vlad often joins us from Ukraine. But it's a much more intimate hangout of just us. I don't let anybody else, because it's my thank you to you guys. So if you can, please consider getting the memberships on TikTok and the memberships on YouTube. They help me out. They support my work. They're not that expensive. But again, if you can't afford it, don't worry about it. This is free. I want it to be free. I appreciate you guys being here. If you can support it and you can afford it, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Frank. All right. So anyway, that's that story. Drones. Interesting stories today on drones, which is kind of interesting. I will stay in touch during my vacation. Yes, I'm going to be in Asia for 2 weeks, and I'm going to you speak English? What? Okay, America. Well, we say English, by the way. Probably the other membership, Ryan, is a little better because I get more money from it. And I worry sometimes about this service if it's going to be continuing. But, whatever is easier for you, let's put it that way. But yeah, I'm going to be in Asia for 2 weeks, Bali and Singapore. And I am going to do some reporting. I think it's going to be vacation reporting. So I'm going to do videos from there. I'll do some video blogs for both YouTube and TikTok. I don't know if I'm going to do the show because the time change is so... I'm going to be on vacation, and my nephew's getting married to a woman from Singapore. But also, it's the time change is crazy. It's from Washington. It's a 12-hour difference. So when it's like 10 in the morning there, it's midnight here, it's 10 o'clock here. Like the time is just terrible. So, I'm not going to be, the show is going to be very hard. Yeah, I'm going to try to go live. I'm going to buy one of those phone cards, the one that somebody mentioned the other day that I was already looking at. I'm going to get one of those phone cards that gives me some, good data and try it to go live from some locations. And then the places I'm staying will have Wi-Fi, so I'll try that too. So, excuse me. Anyway, all right, let me go. So drones. Ukraine did a significant drone attack today. Not clear what the damage report is yet, but nonetheless, Ukraine did a drone attack around 11 or 1,200 kilometers inside Russia, which is like 800 miles or so. Very deep, one of the longest, it might even be the sort of deepest attack they've done in Russia yet. It's in Tatarstan, which is east of Moscow. I don't think I could look on my map. I don't even think I've got it on my map. Oops, I've got to get my, there we go. Pretty much over here-ish is where Ukraine attacked, okay? Pretty much over here. Ukraine is over here. This is Russia. This is Moscow. So like over here. It's a good 1,200 kilometers. Like I said, maybe 800 miles. Ryan, thank you for joining. And thank you for very generous subscription as well from Brian. Ryan, thank you for that. Very nice of you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. So the Ukrainians attack in Tatarstan. They attack two things. One, they targeted a Russian oil refinery. And two, they targeted drone production facility. Now, you might remember last summer we were talking about the Russians with the Iranian help were going to be building some drone facilities to make Shahed drones in Russia, and that they were coming online in January, and we were really worried about this. This facility is one of those, or it may be the plant. It is certainly one of the plants that the Russians put together with the Iranian help to make the Iranian Shahed drones, which are the suicide drones the Russians use to attack Ukrainian infrastructure and Ukrainian residences, apartment buildings, things like that. It's basically a drone that has a bomb inside, and it's literally kamikaze. They take it and they just crash it into a building and blow it up. So what the Ukrainians did is they attacked the drone-making facility today, but they also attacked an oil refinery, which is interesting. Thank you, Booty. And thank you, Joyce, for the gifts. They also attacked an oil refinery, which is interesting because Ukraine's been doing that a lot lately. They've been intentionally going after Russian energy production, and they've been specifically going after the oil refineries, which is very interesting. In other words, they're getting it's a very specific attack on Russia's economy that they're looking at. Like, they're not just saying, we'll go after oil wells and blah, blah, blah. They're going after the refinery capacity. Now, what's interesting is, according to Reuters, the Ukrainians have now taken out 14% of Russia's refinery potential. That's interesting because just last week, Reuters' number was around 10%, you might recall. Now we're up to 14. I'm looking here to give you a little more on this. Ukrainian sources said it was one of the deepest operations into Russian territory. Several experts contacted by, this is from CNN. Several experts contacted by CNN said that rather than hitting fuel storage facilities, for example, Ukraine was hitting distillation units where crude oil is processed and turned into fuel or other derivatives. From what we've seen, some of it is they're striking targets that need a lot of, listen to this. This is what I'm saying. Very smart what the Ukrainians are doing here. Listen to this. From what we've seen, some of it is they're striking targets that need a lot of Western technology, and Russia has a much more difficult time procuring this technology, right? So thank you, Ellie, for the gift, and thank you, Carla and Booty again. I'm just scrolling back. I don't want to miss people, and Joyce and Nathan. They're intentionally hitting facilities that rely on Western technology, knowing the Russians can't get the technology. Oh, Kim, that's really cool. Thank you. Wow. The fireworks. I wonder, it says mystery fireworks. I wonder if each time it creates something different. Like this time it created a dog. Anyway, just curious. That's really wild. Thank you for that. That's very cool. Thank you so much. So they're intentionally hitting the part of the oil refineries or the oil facilities that they know are use a lot of Western tech because they know the Russians can't get that tech very easily because of the sanctions. So again, very smart of what the Ukrainians are doing here. Let me see here. Beep, beep, beep. Okay, a little bit more here. CNN also had a story about artificial intelligence and how the Ukrainian drones are getting more and more. I am on the right mic settings, yes. I don't know why. If they're not any better, that's too bad, Eve, but they're the right settings today. I don't want to turn it up anymore because I already put the mic pretty hot for TikTok. Thank you, Blue Ariel. You've been very generous lately. I saw you subscribed as well. You really subscribed as well. That was very, very nice. I think it was last night or when. I saw it come across my phone and I wrote you back immediately. That was really nice of you. Thank you. And thank you for this too. But CNN had an interesting story about artificial intelligence with the drones. Now, Vlad, our friend in Ukraine, has been filling me in privately, but sometimes I don't quite know with the stuff Vlad tells me what I can. I don't mean to be a jerk about this, but I don't know what I can share, so I tend not to share. The mic does need to be turned down. I can't, Frank, because it's for some reason on YouTube that I broadcast simultaneously. YouTube, the mic is never hot enough. It's never strong enough. So I have to turn it up just enough, but then it makes it a little strong for you guys. So it is a little hot for TikTok. You have to turn yours down a little, but if it's a little hot, it means even turning it down, the quality isn't as good as it could be. But anyway, that's why. So sorry about that. Yeah. Any case, artificial intelligence. So Vlad's told me about a lot of this. Some of it I just don't share because I'm being careful. But what CNN is reporting is that Ukrainian drone attacks have made use of BPD have been made possible with longer ranges and more advanced capabilities, some of which have even begun to integrate a basic form of artificial intelligence to help them navigate and avoid being jammed. According to CNN, according to a research analyst at the Royal United Services Institute, a UK-based think tank, basically you take a model and you have it on a chip and you train this model, thank you, Kim, to identify geography and the target it's navigating to. It does not require any communication with satellites. It's completely autonomous. So what this sounds like to me, I remember in the old days, cruise missiles would work like this, that cruise missiles would literally have a map in their brain and they would follow the topography they would literally look at the ground. They'd look at the geography and they would go, oh, hill, hill that's 200 feet, hill that's 300 feet. And they'd have the map in their brain and they go, I must be here on the map, right? Because the hill tells me where I am. They're doing something similar from what this is describing, that basically the drones have a map to some degree in their brain so that they're able to know where they are. Thank you, Mark, for the confetti. They're able to know where they are, even if they're not able to get GPS or other things that the Russians might be jamming, which is brilliant. They're saying so far it's a pretty rudimentary system, although frankly, from what Vlad is telling me, it sounds like there's some cool stuff going on with AI and the drones that's even more than this article is saying, to be honest. The U.S. is freaking out a little bit. The Biden administration kind of criticized Ukraine today again, I think. U.S. ambassador to NATO, thank you, Crazy American, let me pull up her quote, said today, her name is Julianne Smith, and she was, I believe, asked about the Ukrainian attacks deep inside Russia today. We said 1,200 kilometers, 800 miles inside Russia, hitting the Russian fuel refinery and hitting the Russian plant for making Shahed drones. And our U.S. ambassador to NATO said in response to that, response to these attacks, says that is something that the United States is not particularly supportive of. Can't you just hear the? I mean, I'm sure she didn't mean to be sarcastic, but it does not come across well, right? That is something that the United States is not particularly supportive of. We are focused on the right to defend its territory, to push Russians out of its territory. Okay, let's have a little chat here, because how are you supposed to push the Russians out of your territory if you're not allowed to attack Russia, right? The Russians from day one have been attacking inside Ukraine. That's where they attack. They've been attacking inside Ukraine from day one for over 2 years now. But the U.S. is still telling Ukraine, we don't want you to attack inside Russia. Now, we have said that the Ukrainians cannot use American weapons to do this. We still said this. The Brits, The Brits have said, go ahead. I mean, the Brits have been okay. The Germans, I forget. The Germans, I'd be a little surprised. But the Brits, I remember, said, it's okay. The Americans have said, don't use our weapons to attack inside Russia. But we also are putting out, like what I just read, these more general statements. Jillian is saying we may have a troll. Oh, we do have a troll. Yeah, Black Diamond over on YouTube is a troll. If somebody can just check it out. I assume we've got our mods over there today. If we don't, somebody go over. Amanda, I'm guessing you're there. But yeah, it's Black Diamond is their name. Just take them out, guys. Thank you. So speaking, well, good. Then we'll talk. The troll's not going to like this. Thanks, Amanda. Appreciate it. Yeah. So here's the thing. You know, I don't love that the U.S. is saying don't use our weapons to attack inside Russia, but to tell the Ukrainians you can't even use your own weapons, which is what this is, right? These are Ukrainian. The Ukrainian drones are Ukrainian made. They're Ukrainian weapons. To tell them they can't attack inside Russia, I mean, like, you know, I mean, I seriously, I don't get it. I don't get it, especially when it's not our weapons. When it's not our weapons, like, what's the point? You know, you're afraid of angering Putin. What else is he going to do? And especially, I would say, especially right now, when the U.S. isn't even giving aid to Ukraine. We're giving a last little bit of aid because there was some extra money we found. And we're going to be giving some ATACMS missiles. But of course, we're not even giving the ATACMS missiles Ukraine needs and wants and that the experts have said they should be getting. We're actually giving them the old ATACMS missiles that don't go far enough. I mean, again, Biden is still doing this. He's still pulling punches, guys. Still. But at this point, we're still telling the Ukrainians, when otherwise we're not giving a dime. For 6 months, U.S. aid has been zeroed out, right? MAGA Republicans in Congress, at the demand of Donald Trump, killed U.S. aid to Ukraine. It's gone. 100% is gone. U.S. aid is gone, and we're still lecturing the Ukrainians and telling them, we'd prefer that you don't hit Russia. I just feel like at this point, and again, God bless the Ukrainians, and they shouldn't say anything bad to us, but at this point, you know, I don't think America has much of a leg to stand on to lecture Ukraine about how to fight the war when we're not even helping anymore. You know, it just, anyway, I find it just, this is a good way to lose a war, to tie your hands behind your back and be constantly worried about angering the guy who's trying to literally wipe you off the map. The Russian goal is to absorb Ukraine. The Russian Orthodox Church said this weekend, that the goal was to take all of Ukraine. Many Russian commentators have said this too. They have said that they believe that Ukraine doesn't exist, that the Ukrainians are deluded into thinking that Ukraine is a real country, that they're really Russians, and they just don't know. This was the beginning of the war. I remember hearing this and thinking, wow, that the Russians believe that the Ukrainians are really Russians who don't realize they're Russians and they need to be educated, right? With that kind of mentality, whatever, you get it. I just find it outrageous. Financial Times report, something totally different story. This is actually some good news. I'm not sure kind of where we go with this, but some good news. It took me, I had to read several stories to understand what this story is. It's a little confusing. But Financial Times, I think, had the best story that I found of this. So we'll see. Thank you, Zood. Appreciate it. Please keep the gifts coming, guys. Remember, I always tell you that story from Argentina. Te gusta botalo? The Argentine politician I met when I was working there. Thank you, user. I was working in Argentina back in 1988. And it was shortly after the summer of 88. I was working at the U.S. Embassy when I was in graduate school. And it was shortly after Argentina left military dictatorship. There was a military junta that killed tens of thousands of Argentines. It was horrible. Thank you, Sunita. Really horrible. And my project was interviewing a bunch of different people for various things I was working on. And I forgot why, but for one of them, I had to interview this woman who, she might have already been running for president. Thank you, Sunita. Or thank you, Frank. Who is Maria Julia Alzogaray, who recently died, I guess. But Maria Julia was a right-winger. She was, well known in Argentina. Very beautiful woman, very strong woman, and knew how to use both for politics. I mean, very smart, strong woman, and very pretty. So but it's relevant to the story. And she's telling me, and there was a famous story about it. I think I asked her, and she told me, because I remember the movement. She goes, and so I'm in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and interviewing this top sort of opposition leader, right wing, far right, some people would say. Thank you, Fran. And Maria Julia is telling me about how she's running for president, and she goes and is walking down the street by a construction site. And these construction workers, look, and she's running for office, look at her, and one of them, catcalls to her and goes, pero Maria Julia, pero qué culo. Like, Maria Julia, what a fine, ass you have. He yells at her. And she goes, and I love it because she has emotion. She goes, and I looked at him and I said, ¿te gusta? Votalo. She goes, I pointed to it and I said, you like it? Vote for it. And I just loved that quote, but I also love the turning around and pointing to her butt and going, you like it? Vote for it. So that was my long way of saying, if you like the show, please, make sure to give me gifts, but also give your other creators gifts, because for those of us who do this full time, we need to pay the bills, and we pay the bills with your guys' gifts. So thank you for that. And by the way, thank you Ryan and Juan and Jonathan and Ryan again and Ryan again and Ryan again. Fran, I'm just looking at some of the gifts I missed during my story. Frank and Sunita, I did get Sunita because I remember your name. Jean-Paul, thank you guys, appreciate it. But it always cracks me up though. I have had the benefit of meeting interesting people in my life with work. Thank you, Freestyle. But I love that. ¿Te gusta? Botalo. Too funny. All right. Thank you, Brett. So the Financial Times story. So I looked at several stories today, and finally the Financial Times one, I think, explained it well enough that made sense. Basically, NATO is drawing up plans for like a 5-year plan for a military aid package for Ukraine, totaling $100 billion with a B. The idea is, and I'm not sure how this would work, but the idea is that rather than having it be individual countries, the military aid would be like given to NATO. Dawn, what is that? Jesus, Dawn, thank you. Oh, wow. Now I have to ask, because I have my microphone plugged in, so I can't hear. Did that had to have sound too? Did that have sound? Sorry, but Dawn just did some insane gift on TikTok with some rocket flying across the screen. Did it have sound as well? I'm just curious because I've got my mic plugged in, so it doesn't have sound. Okay. I always wonder if I'm missing it because I've got my microphone plugged in, so I can never hear the sound. Oh my God, Dawn, thank you so much. That was crazy. Thank you so much. You're always very generous. I really appreciate that, Dawn. Thank you. And it's also fun. It's fun for everybody to get crazy gifts. I mean, I love it. Thank you, because it helps me out. But it also, I think, is fun for everybody to get those as well. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. You are so nice. So Financial Times. So the idea is that countries will somehow donate military aid to NATO, and then NATO will dole out the military aid over the next 5 years. And the idea is they want to raise $100 billion with a B, or $1 billion worth of aid. They are going to determine each country's contribution based on a number of things. Like Germany, I think, would contribute the most at 16%. And I don't know about the most. They mentioned Germany. Germany would be 16%. The U.S. would also be 16% of the total. France would be maybe 11 or 12% or something. The Brits might be 10 or 11%, I think it said. My guess is it's based on the size of your economy, or probably GDP, exactly what Tari's saying. It's got to be based on your GDP or something. Now, the idea is to create this, except that the U.S. will only give as much as the Germans is the ask, because they don't want it to be, once again, the U.S. giving the lion's share, and then the Americans get pissed off because the Americans say, why are we paying more than everybody else, right? So it's meant to be a Euro-focused fund. The idea is the money is somehow provided up front. Maybe the weapons are too. I don't quite know how this would work, so that future administrations can't kill it, so that it isn't subject to the political whims of the American elections, but also European elections. Slovakia, a guy took over who's very anti-Ukraine and very pro-Putin, right? I mean, we know Hungary's bad anyway, but in Slovakia, a new bad government took over. The thing that I'm not understanding is, how does this really get you around the political wins, right? Thank you, Frankie. I mean, if what's the difference? Let's say the 16% that America provides. Let's pretend that's okay. 16% is 16 billion. Let's pretend the Americans agree, and we put up $16 billion. And again, good luck, right, getting that passed through Congress. But let's say we do. Where does that money go? Is it money? Is it military aid? First of all, right? I don't quite understand what it is. Is it money or military aid? If it's money, okay, I guess we could allocate the money. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's weapons. And if it's weapons, how do you, right? You can't get them now. You can't get weapons over the next 5 years. You can't get all of them now. We've got to make them, right? So how do you guarantee that under a Trump administration, he doesn't just shut off the weapons, right? I'm not understanding this. Let me read you a little bit more from this. It's Stoltenberg, who's the Secretary General of NATO, said the proposal is meant to shield the mechanism against the winds of political change. Financial Times said if approved, it would also give the alliance control of the U.S.-led Ramstein Weapons Support Group and allow it to manage the supply of lethal weapons to Ukraine for the first time. Again, I don't understand why that matters or what that... The Ramstein Group is all the defense ministers, defense secretaries who get together every month and basically, scheme and coordinate aid to Ukraine. The U.S. is, I guess, in charge of that gathering. NATO would be in charge instead. Who cares, right? I mean, who cares? I don't get it. Unless they're worried about the Trump administration running it. Okay, that I can understand, that they don't want the Trumpies, the Trump people to run it. Maybe that's the case. But otherwise, anyway, so you get what I'm going at. I would say, and this is, I would blame the reporter a little bit, because this is one of those things, if I was an editor, I would go, okay, I still don't get it. Why does this, and again, let's take the Trump administration, but why does this help you get around the Trump administration? Can't they just cut off the weapons next year anyway? They can't provide 5 years of weapons up front. They're not going to be able to do that. In any case, yeah, oh, here we go. Germany would be asked to chip in 16%, the U.S. 16%, France, and France I said around 10 or 11%, I believe. So I don't get it. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued, but I don't get it. Well, but again, Max, it depends. Max is saying it could be escrow. A, is it weapons or is it money? Thank you, not Canadian, right? If it's money, okay, you can provide the money up front and then it goes to some European bank or whatever, right? Fair enough. If it's weapons, that's not the way it works because it takes, right? We can't provide all the weapons up front for the next 5 years. As we know, we have to make these weapons. Some of the weapons have been prepared, the ground-launched small diameter bombs or whatever they're called. I believe we just sent some of those to Ukraine, or maybe it was several months ago, but it took about a year because they were being prepared, they were being made, right? So some of that doesn't happen yet. I don't get it. In any case, a little more news here. Ukraine has destroyed a record 976 Russian artillery systems in March, reportedly, according to the Ukrainians. This was a funny story. Russia has painted decoy aircraft. I've reported on this one before, that the Russians have painted aircraft on the ground at more than a dozen air bases in order to confuse Ukrainian bombers, and bombers being like drone pilots and things, right? They paint the shape of an airplane on the ground, and it's diffused the drone, so the drone comes in and just hits the pavement that looks like an airplane, right? Well, the Russians kind of screwed it up a little bit, according to the article. According to the British Defense Ministry, the attempt at deception, according to the Brits, was completely undermined by Russian helicopters regularly landing on the decoys. Thank you, Taylor. So the Russians keep sending helicopters and they land on top of the decoy because the decoy's painted on the ground. So they land on top of it, and then the Ukrainians know, okay, that's a decoy. So next time they're not going to make a mistake. But I love that, come on, guys. You just have to love them for this. But that's just freaking great. But that came from the British Ministry of Defense. Germany, good for Germany. Germany has pledged 180,000 rounds of artillery shells as part of the Czech-led initiative to provide artillery shells to Ukraine. The shells will cost 576 million euros or $619 million, the German Defense Ministry said. And good for Germany. I mean, Germany's been good and bad, hot and cold. on the Ukraine stuff, but I would say in the last 6 months to a year, they've gotten very good. Hold on, let's do our, wait, hold on. I love when he kind of goes nuts too. All right. We had a, you are lying. You are lying. I'm lying that the German Defense Ministry has pledged 180,000 rounds of artillery shells for Ukraine? Really? Is that true? Is that true? Well, we do mute somebody's Zood when they're an obvious troll. You may not come here regularly enough to know that. You are lying is a talking point that the Russian trolls are given. And literally, not even 99, 100% of the time that they go public and say, you're lying, it's at some crazy time that doesn't make sense. Like right now, I'm reading a story that the German Defense Ministry today announced that it is going to pay for 180,000 artillery rounds. And the guy came out and said, you're lying. I'm lying that the German Defense Ministry issued a press release today? Really? Right? Yesterday, what did they say yesterday I was lying about? Remember? Yesterday was something yesterday was I talking about something not even related to Ukraine. It was something like personal or something, and they go, you're lying. And I'm like, I'm lying? About my dog or whatever it was? Yeah, so in any case, that's why we mute people like that, Zood, because they're obvious Russian trolls. Yeah. Anyway, all right. That is it for the news today. Remember the auctions, guys? We've got... that's why, just so you know. that was an obvious troll. And like you'll notice it, by the way. If you come back to the show, you will literally see somebody say you're lying at the completely wrong time. It makes... Oh, I was talking about Bali? I was talking about my vacation in Bali that I'm taking for my nephew's wedding. And the person goes, you're lying. And it was like... I'm lying about my nephew's wedding in Bali? Really? Well, they're just getting... Anyway, you get it. They're given talking points and they just read them, but they read them at all the wrong times, which cracks me up. We have auctions. Check out our auctions. We've got auctions we do every week over at Discord. They are cool stuff from Ukraine, like... Actually, people really like this coffee mug that Vlad got in Ukraine. That's very cool. That's actually got some really big bids on it. We've got... nice little packet of Ukrainian candy that Vlad picked up that we're auctioning off, Vlad's favorites. I'm trying to find some of the other... I was trying to find like all the... Oh, that's right. We've got the... Well, I've got it wrapped up right now. It's a cool Ukrainian... I will never remember. Needlepoint, I think you guys said. But it's... what was the word? You said not antique, because antique would be 100 years old. This is from the 1950s or 1960s. So whatever word, vintage maybe is the word you used. But this really cool vintage, I guess Ukrainian needlepoint, possibly it's called, but done by hand, that Vlad got in the mountains near him. That's very neat. And it's used, it's used for Easter and other holidays. They use them as like little table, cross stitch, whatever. It's way over my head, Wild Hunt. But Wild Hunt says cross stitch. I trust her. But they use them as table decorations, and also Vlad said they use them as napkins and stuff too, which I would never do. But yeah, the cross stitch was the cross stitch lying. Maybe that's what it was. Thank you, Brett, for the gift. But we've got lots of other cool stuff. Go check it out on the Discord. You can find my Discord community. The auctions end tomorrow. I mean, I'll have more auctions after that, but the auctions end tomorrow. Highest bidder wins, exactly. Caroline, you can find it at aravosis.com. If you go to aravosis.com, it pulls up a page of my links, YouTube, TikTok, etc. Just scroll down. You'll find Discord. Click it. Or you guys can, on TikTok, and just find the link in my profile on TikTok. Go to my profile, look for the downward pointing triangles or whatever it is in red, and you'll see the link. Click it. And again, scroll down. Thank you, Em. Scroll down and you'll see Discord. Click it and you'll find the auctions over on Discord. So, but yeah, a lot of cool stuff. I've got like 12 different things. I don't have all of it handy here, but we've got, although now I'm trying to remember though, if I've still got this up for auction. I can't remember what I've got, what I had last week and what I have this week. Let me look really quick. Hold on. I'm going to look, and then we'll get back to we're going to do Q&A now, just hanging out our Q&A. But let me just look and see, because what else I had still up. Right, the MiG-29 cover. Oh, that's true. The kind of fun, sort of a funky Ukrainian map. The coffee mug. Oh, I do have the military patch. Yeah, so cool Ukrainian military patch that we've got up for auction. Velcro. These are brown so that basically snipers don't see you. I've got a Russian military bag from Ukraine, kind of a knapsack that the Ukrainians got. A decorative plate. A sort of decorative hot plate, but you wouldn't use it as a hot plate because it's decorative. But signed by the artist, a woman in Ukraine who makes these. It's the Petrakivka, which is the traditional Ukrainian style. It's made of wood. But these are very pretty. My Zelensky sweatshirt, which somebody already outbid Callum on. But these are really neat. These are these sweatshirts that Zelensky wears. And we found the same manufacturer. They're really nice because they're super comfortable. We found the same manufacturer. And so it's literally the exact same ones he wears. And these are the last couple we've got, actually. These are the last two, I think. They're both mediums, and they're real American mediums. Like for me, I'm between a medium and a large. This is a little small. So it is a true American medium. And a very cool embroidered black short sleeve shirt that is also very pretty with Ukrainian trident. But it's very pretty because it is a flower motif. And again, very, very well done. I mean, it's a beautiful, it is, I say embroidery, whatever, it's real stitching. I mean, if you look at the inside, it's a very nice shirt too. It's a very pretty, it's a very soft material, which is nice. But yeah, from what I can tell, no, it is. Yeah. It's a real knit thing because you can tell it's coming across this side. Yeah, it's knit. So, anyway. Yep. So there you go. Anyway, lots of cool stuff. So go check it out. You can bid on the stuff over at my Discord community. It's Discord. You're winning again. Okay, Callum. The Discord community, you can find Aravosis Discord. If you're on Discord, I guess just search for Aravosis Discord. Otherwise, go to TikTok to my profile. Look for the link in my profile. There's some red triangles pointing at the link in my profile. Click that link, and it's a list of my links. It arrives on a page, and on that page, just look for Discord's maybe the fourth or fifth thing on that page. Click it, and it'll take you there. A little complicated, but you'll figure it out. All right. Anyway, so there we go. All right. Oh, you know what I did find too? I was very excited. Remember I told you I thought I auctioned off the one large Zelensky sweatshirt that I loved? I didn't. I found it in my bedroom. So I have one finally. Yay. I was afraid. Discord's free, Carrie. For the VIP auctions are for the paid monthly subscribers on all the other services other than TikTok because TikTok is broken. For some reason, TikTok's connection to Discord doesn't work, and they tried to fix it a year ago and were unsuccessful, and I don't know why they don't fix it, but they don't. So TikTok subscribers can access the public auction, but not the VIP section, which is for monthly subscribers, but not the TikTok monthly subscribers because it's broken on TikTok. So everybody else can access the VIP, but you still got to sign in on Discord and then link your Discord account to YouTube or wherever you've got the subscription. So, all right. Let's go. Let's do Q&A, comment, hanging out, whatever you guys want. Hey, Max in Ukraine, you are very welcome. We are happy to support you. Hope you and your family are doing okay. So what do we got, guys? Let's talk. What do we got? Let me get my glasses on and see some of these comments. There's no way to do a lottery, Caroline. Sorry. Lotteries are not legal in many American states, and there's all sorts of crazy, I looked into it. There's all sorts of crazy laws. It's horrific. So that's why we don't do lotteries. I would love to do a lottery, but I don't do it because it's like illegal. And I've got enough problems with our overlords than doing that. So yeah, that's why I don't do it. Nothing on the F-16s, absolutely nothing. Although we're not expecting Ukraine to get the F-16s until at least the summer anyway. So, whether that's July, if we're lucky, right? But yeah, lotteries, unfortunately, are just, not good. Always sweater weather in Nunavut, exactly. Thank you, aviation. I don't remember. Did you buy one of those? Or no, you tried to buy one of the Zelensky shirts, I thought, right? Or maybe not. Thank you, aviation. Yeah, but raffles the same problem. They're all like, neither one's allowed. You know, the mug. I mean, the problem is this mug was made by Rowan's daughter, so we don't have any more of these to auction, and I can't auction off the mug she made for me. But thank you. I mean, she'd be flattered, I'm sure, but you know. So yeah, I can't auction that one off. Correct, Wild Hunt. I didn't even want to use that word because our overlords are very picky, as you know. I don't think so, R19. I mean, R19's asking, should we be worried about backing Putin into a corner like a rat with no other options? The thing is, A, what corner is Putin backed into right now? What corner is Putin in danger of being backed into? Right? None. I think that's what worries Biden. I think Biden is absolutely worried about, oh my God, what will Putin do? But I would ask, and what exactly will Putin do? What exactly is the concern of what Putin will do? We all know what it really is. Biden's worried Putin will use nuclear weapons. Why would he do that exactly? Would be my question. I would say, okay, walk me through it. Walk me through as a defense expert, as a foreign policy expert, as an expert in government policy, how presidents think. What would Putin's analysis be? Right? A, we know from a military perspective, nuclear weapons are useless. Now, forget attacking us. He's never going to attack us with nuclear weapons because we've got the weapons as well. We've got them on submarines, and we would respond. And you can't hit nuclear submarines, basically. For all intents and purposes, they're underwater. You'll never find them. So that's what stops Russia from attacking us. And frankly, it stops us from attacking Russia as well, because we know their nuclear submarines would attack us in response. So that's not going to happen. Sorry, Susan had a super chat question. The hot pads. I can show the hot pads. Yes, we're not auctioning them yet, but Vlad sent a number of really cool hot pads from Ukraine that are a traditional art form. The wood is juniper, because he told me what it was in Ukrainian, and they're very cool. I may not show you all of them because I've got like 8 of them, but they're very pretty. They smell really nice, but they're these traditional Ukrainian hot pads made from wood. Some of them are cool. Like this one, now this is one of the ones I may keep though. This one's neat because it's two-sided. Another one that's two-sided, really, really pretty. And I will be auctioning off several of these. Here's another one that's two-sided. Again, very pretty, and they have a beautiful smell, but Vlad said what's cool too is because they're juniper, you put hot plates and things on them, and you can smell the wood, which is really neat. That's another one. This one's kind of funny. This one I like this side. This side, it's not my taste. This side, the artist did a design in the wood, burning into the wood, and it's a cute little like gnome or something, or oh no, it's a cute little chipmunk. For my taste, it's a little girly, but, you know, I don't want to knock it in case somebody likes it, but she designed the little chipmunk. Is it a porcupine? Yeah. Now, this is another one that I'm considering keeping. I will let you know, but I may keep it because it's very pretty. And then finally, this one, which is the final one that I'm considering keeping because it's really cute, too. It's really sweet. But this one is might be a little too masculine. Anyway, those are they. I will auction off at least one of them because basically I'm leaving for Chicago this weekend. Going to be in Chicago for a week, then going to Asia. Thank you, R19. So I've got to figure out how I'm doing the auctions when I'm gone, you know? So I will try to put some of these in my suitcase so I can mail them from Chicago because it's going to be a bit of a pain. So we'll have to see how I do this. Or I'm just not going to auction them for a month until I get back. You know what I mean? And then I'll auction them from here. Let's say it just depends. It honestly depends how full my suitcase is. So we'll see. Anyway, I am doing a coffee talk this Saturday. Yes. Because this Sunday I leave for Chicago. So Saturday I will do a coffee talk. Yes. Oh, so we're talking about Putin using nukes, right? So A, he's not going to nuke the West because we would fire back. So he's not going to do that. Darren asks, could Putin use a tactical nuclear weapon as a show of strength to his own people and Biden? Yes. that would make a lot more sense than using it for actual military reasons. The experts will tell you that there's no military advantage to Putin using nuclear weapons in Ukraine. That it's not like all the Ukrainian forces are gathered together and he could drop a nuke on them or something, right? So he gets no military advantage. Now, he could try to freak Biden out, right? And freak, the French and the Germans out or whatever, right? Freak American public opinion out by using a nuke, maybe. Now, it gets a little complicated because he can't, he probably wouldn't use it in the occupied Ukrainian territories because remember, Putin is claiming that those territories are his. He's claiming they're Russia now. So if he nukes Russia, that would be weird, right? He could attack Ukraine. He could attack Kyiv. The problem you get here is, what would the West do to respond if Putin were to drop a nuclear weapon in Ukraine, right? And therefore, I would argue that the only chance of Putin using a nuclear weapon in Ukraine is if he thinks we would do nothing in response, which Jackie just kind of just said. And a couple of you just said on TikTok, right? If he thinks that we're too chicken and we would sit there and go, if he used a nuclear weapon in Ukraine and we wouldn't do anything, then he might use one because then his calculus would be correct. He'd say, I'll use one and I'll scare you into backing off. If he were to think it would cause us to enter the war, then I think he would not do it. I think you'd have a really good chance of Poland, the Baltic states, possibly the UK and France entering the war if Putin used a nuke. I would argue that America would have to enter the war if he used a nuke in Ukraine. I am not convinced Biden would. I don't think Biden would enter the war. I would think America would have to, however, because it would be an incredibly dangerous message to send the world that it's now okay to use a tactical nuclear weapon. That would be a very bad message to send because it would be, well, we've got Israel, we've got Pakistan, we've got India, right? North Korea. You got lots of countries that have nuclear weapons that you don't want them using their nuclear weapons. So and if he uses a nuke, does China finally turn on him and go, okay, that's too far. We're not supporting you anymore. Does India do the same? India is trying to play both sides right now. Does India say, okay, forget it, right? So very interesting. Very interesting. What happens. So yeah, so anybody who were to say, I'm worried about Putin using nukes, I would want them to walk me through what analysis Putin would do to use those nukes because I don't think it makes sense. Hey, George. I don't know, Rich. I mean, it's something, AA, you keep spamming. I'm not going to answer the question because no offense, but I think you're a troll. That's a trolly question, so give it up. All right. What else we got, guys? Well, that too. Arctic Legacy said most of Russia's new generation heavy military equipment is still behind what the Americans have. Correct. Which is also why, again, though, Russia is desperate for NATO not to enter the war. But they're trying to bluff their way into scaring NATO to not help Ukraine. And they keep saying, oh boy, they did it again today. Oh boy, this is a war between NATO. NATO's risking war with us by what they're doing. The Russians did it. It was Patrushev. I didn't even tell you the story. One of Putin's top advisors and top, sort of connected people to Putin in the government, Patrushev, today made all these comments about, it's really a war with NATO and this stuff. He's trying to scare NATO. But he's doing it by constantly saying like, it's almost like we're at war with NATO. War with NATO could happen any day. There is a 0% chance the Russians want war with NATO. Russia's having a very hard time, thank you, Christine, defeating Ukraine. They're 3 years into this war. This war was supposed to take 3 to 10 days. It's taken 3 years. Russia is now advancing a little itty bitty bit because the Americans cut off all aid. Otherwise, Russia's not doing well. Do you think Russia, and mind you, now that Russia's lost several 100,000 troops, according to the US and others, now that Russia's lost thousands of tanks, right, and lots of planes and boats and everything else, you think Russia, that's having a very hard time defeating Ukraine, wants to go to war with 32 NATO countries, including the United States, right, the United Kingdom, Norway, Finland, Poland? Germany? France? Give me a break, right? Give me a break. There's 0% chance that Russia wants war with us. Now, the thing is, thank you, Timothy, they keep talking about going to war with us for two reasons. One, to be cocky for their own people. Oh, we're going to get those Americans, right? And two, to try to scare us. They want us, and it worked with Biden, it works, right? Biden is constantly kind of afraid, I think, of, oh my God, what would happen? Oh my God. That's what they want, But it drives me a little crazy. Sorry, looking at Arctic, I'm trying to see what it is you wrote earlier. Putin is limited in his options and he knows it. Oh, this is where the desperate attitude comes from, where he retorts with nukes because right now that's his only deterrence. Correct. He's bluffing, but he's bluffing. There's nothing else Putin can do. He could use nukes, but he knows nukes are wild. Nuclear weapons do not help him in Ukraine. Thank you, Tom. They won't help him militarily. And B, he risks NATO or at least some NATO countries entering the war. I think if he uses a nuke, Poland goes, that's it. And Poland moves into at least at Ukraine's request, moves into half of Ukraine, puts their troops down and says, this is over. You may have taken the land you took in the east. You're not touching anything else. And keep in mind, Putin wants to take all of Ukraine. I mean, he's done very well in eastern Ukraine, but he wants all of Ukraine. So yeah. Thank you, Running. Alex, I don't predict anything for an upcoming NATO summit. I mean, we know there's not going to be any path for Ukraine to join NATO offered. That's the latest. I even read that today. So I just don't expect much of anything. The U.S. isn't giving aid. I mean, it'll be a nice summit because the Swedes and the Finns are there. So it's historic in that sense, which is nice. But, Zood, do I think there would be an alliance against NATO? The Russians are trying. I'm not sure how they're going to do it, though. And with as the joke goes, them and what army? Who are they going to do it with? The Chinese? Doubt it. It'll be like Libya, North Korea, maybe. Right, Libya, Syria, China. The thing is, we haven't seen that from China. China is not in a self-defense pact with Russia. They're not, right? They're not at all. Russia, who knows? Russia might do something crazy with North Korea, maybe. Thank you, Vicky. But I don't see them doing it with China. Belarus. So currently, it's like B-list right now. Belarus, big deal. I don't see how Ukraine gets its land back, Abdul Hamid. I don't see how they get it. You're asking, do you see Ukraine getting its land back? I don't see how they do, right? We're not supporting them to get their land back. We never have. So how are they going to get it back? Thank you, Frank. Had we given them the weapons they needed at the beginning of the war, I think they could have gotten their land back. Yeah. Had we given them the weapons they needed for the counteroffensive, they could have gotten their land back. We didn't. We waited too long to get them the weapons. We dragged it out. And what happened? Thank you, Running. While we dragged it out, the Russians dug in. And the Russians took the months of delay in getting Ukraine the weapons. The Russians responded by digging in, 5 times as much. And it made it that much harder for the Ukrainians to fight back. We never gave them the airplanes they needed for the counteroffensive. The experts predicted it and said the counteroffensive can't be successful without aircraft. It can't be. And guess what? It wasn't. So, had we given Ukraine what it needed at the beginning, we're still not giving Ukraine what it needs. Biden still won't give them the ATACMS weapons. Thank you, Mark. We still won't give them the ATACMS they need, the long-range ATACMS. The Germans still won't give them the cruise missiles they need. We're still playing games, guys. So right now, I don't see how Ukraine gets its land back. No. But what Russia now has is a growing guerrilla war. War of attrition, but also guerrilla war. The Ukrainians are going to keep going after local officials. It's Ukrainian land that's occupied. They're going to keep doing car bombs and other things that were in the news this week. And that's going to be a problem for Russia. You occupy somebody else's country, not good. So, yeah, the Kerch Bridge thing I don't get, Well, the problem is, the problem Abdul Hamid is asking, should they consider peace? What peace is there to consider? The problem is, Russia wants to take all of Ukraine. Okay, 2014, they did the first attack and took Crimea in the south. They then kept fighting. They also invaded in the east too. They kept fighting the whole time. There was never peace. And then they invaded again big time in 2022. And what did they do? They took even more land, right? Let me show you. Oops. So first time they invade and they take this in the south. And they also, putatively take some land out here. Next time they invade, they take all of this. First of all, they took all of this too. But this stuff up here, the Ukrainians got back with our help, right? They still control this. They still want to take Kyiv, the capital. They still want to take Odessa in the south. They want all of this. They want all of Ukraine. They certainly want Kyiv and they want Odessa, but they want all of Ukraine. If Ukraine reaches a peace agreement with Russia, oops, I'm dropping all my stuff here. All it's going to do is give Russia time. Sorry, putting my auction items back here. All it's going to do is give Russia time to build up its military and attack again in 8 years. Thank you, N1CO. And that's the concern, is that any peace deal simply gives Russia time to dig in. And they're just going to be back for more. Thank you, Bjorn. They're just going to be back for more. So that's the problem. And yeah, I'm not surprised Medvedev had a map chopping up Ukraine. Not surprised. But that's the problem. Like, you're not dealing with a border dispute. You're not dealing with two countries that, for 100 years have been arguing over where their border is and that's what's right or whatever. That's not what's going on. Russia is upset that the Soviet Union is gone. They're upset that when the Soviet Union dissolved, Ukraine broke free. Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia broke free. Moldova broke free. They want them back. How do you negotiate that? It's like someone is trying to break into my house because they want my house. How do you negotiate that? There's nothing that you could give Russia that would stop them from taking the rest of it. And here's the problem too. Russia's defenders were not telling the truth. Russia isn't worried about NATO. Russia doesn't want, Russia, sure. Let me rephrase this. Russia can't stand NATO. Of course they're worried about NATO. Russia doesn't want Ukraine to join NATO. But Russia isn't going to let Ukraine just sit there if they don't join NATO. Russia wants Ukraine. Russia believes that Ukraine does not exist as an independent country. They believe the Ukrainians are really Russians, and they believe that Russia was cheated when the Soviet Union dissolved. They want Ukraine back. So there's nothing that could be agreed to that would stop Russia from invading again. That's my concern. That's my concern. Yeah, but the Alaska stuff they're lying about, Arimas. The Alaska stuff, when they say, we're going to take Alaska back, that's part of that weird bravado the Russians are doing for public consumption, where they're just trying to kind of beat their chest, about war. They went after France last night. They discussed on Russian state television, they discussed which French city they should bomb. And it was just like, France has nuclear weapons. You're not bombing France. And France is also a member of NATO, which means NATO will go to war with you. But also, France has nuclear weapons. You're not touching France, right? But they do it because it's this weird bravado that they're doing to make their people feel brave or something, I don't think so. No, I don't think so, user 404. Is asking, is NATO being slow? Is NATO intentionally extending the war to keep Russia busy and weaken them? I don't think so. I think that would be horrible if that were true. For Biden, for example, Biden would never agree to that. Biden would, the idea is, is NATO actually intentionally not giving Ukraine enough weapons so that the war drags on and the Russians are weaker and weaker and weaker because the Ukrainians keep hurting them. And that's better for the West because Russia's weak. No. Now, you could make the argument that supporting Ukraine, one of the arguments for someone defending aid to Ukraine in Washington, could be to tell U.S. policymakers that by helping Ukraine these last couple of years, we are weakening Russia. We have, this many Russian troops, this many Russian tanks, this many Russian planes, this many Russian ships have been destroyed or damaged, right? Thank you, R19. And that is a great benefit to the U.S. militarily. Because even though some people in our country don't want to admit it, Russia is, not our friend. And Russia is our strategic enemy, basically. So that Yeah, you could make that argument, sure. But I don't think anyone's trying to extend the war. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Article 5 of NATO extends to the territory controlled by Ukraine. I'm not sure what you mean, Alex. Not sure, I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean? Are you saying if Ukraine were to join NATO? I mean, Ukraine could join NATO. There's an issue as to what do you do with the occupied land in the east that the Russians are in. Having said that, Germany joined NATO, and East Germany was part of the Soviet bloc. It was occupied by the Russians, in essence. The Russians installed a communist dictatorship in East Germany, and it was basically occupied by the Soviets. But they were able to join NATO anyway, so people have argued that could be a model for Ukraine joining NATO. And then if it was, the free part of Ukraine would be protected by NATO, would be the argument. And you could do that, yes. It would require some backbone that Biden, the French, and the Germans don't. Certainly the Germans and Biden don't have. You know? But you could. Ronald Reagan would do it. Annette, correct. Annette says, even if we gave Ukraine the aircraft, weren't the pilots not trained until recently? Yes, but people were trying to get the pilots trained a year before, and Biden said no. Adam Kinzinger, who's a very good Republican member of Congress, who then stepped down, a very, very conservative, anti-Trump, so, you know, they forced him out. Kinzinger had said a year earlier, a year before we started training Ukrainian pilots, Kinzinger had said he put legislation forward to start training Ukrainian pilots. We were already into the war at this point. I forget what, maybe 6-9 months into the war. And Kinzinger said, let's start training them now because you know as well as I do, eventually we're giving them the aircraft. Biden said no. Biden waited another year, and then we started training them. So, yeah, we could have started. We didn't start training them for a year and a half. I mean, we had a year and a half that we could have trained them. So, correct. Once we finally came through and said, yes, we'll give it to you, we then had to train them. Yes. But Biden dragged his feet. He could have started the training a year before, and he didn't. And again, it's not like this is pie in the sky. A senior Republican congressman talked about it, proposed it, even passed legislation, at least in the House, saying they should do it. And Biden said no, because he didn't want to escalate in anger of Vladimir Putin. So, anyway. What else we got, guys? Is Ukraine out of men? They're not out of men. A lot of people think they need more. But politically, that's not easy in a democracy. You know, even in Russia, Putin is getting more men, but he's been cautious as well. He's been afraid to call up more men in Russia too. So, you know, Charlie, that's interesting. Boy, that's a tough question. Charlie asks, is NATO not a good enough deterrent to keep Putin away from the Baltics? At one point, I would have thought yes. Now I'm not convinced anymore. At one point, it never made sense to me why everyone was so worried about Russia going after the Baltic. The Baltics meaning Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, right? Former Soviet countries up here. Here's Russia, part of the Soviet Union, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, part of the Soviet Union, Belarus, part of the Soviet Union, Ukraine, Moldova. Where's Moldova? Over here. Now they're members of NATO. So in principle, Russia can't touch them because it would be war with NATO. The concern, and I had talked to some former NATO officials about this right before the war started, the concern is that the Russians could move in and within a day or two take those countries, and then NATO's got to get them out, right? Now, one thing that's kind of interesting, well, not interesting, is, again, it depends on NATO's backbone. Just because the Russians invade doesn't mean we're going to use nukes. We probably wouldn't use nukes because we wouldn't want them using nukes against us. So we're not going to use nuclear weapons. It would be a conventional war. I don't know. It's now there is clearly great concern among a number of NATO countries that the Russians may take a victory in Ukraine as a sign that they should move on and attack Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, attack possibly parts of Poland, certainly attack Moldova, and move on from there. Maybe go after Finland. Who knows? I mean, they'd be really stupid to go after Finland, but maybe. Finland joined NATO last year, George. Yeah. Finland joined NATO last year, and Sweden joined NATO about a month ago. So that's the concern. I mean, I'm still trying to sort of process this, but the people who know much more than me in Europe, who are the defense experts, are all very worried that Russia's preparing for war with NATO. Very worried. And that basically the NATO, and by the way, one of the things you've got to worry about is when we say you go to war with NATO, if you attack NATO, we mean you're going to war with the U.S. Are you anymore? Are you going to war with the U.S. if you attack NATO? What if Donald Trump's president? Will Donald Trump go to war for Estonia? Really? Right? I can't imagine in a million years Trump declaring war on Russia for anything, let alone as for Estonia, right? And I say that I like Estonia, but for Trump, little Estonia, right? So so if you're Putin and you start to say, okay, so I'm not really fighting NATO if I invade. I'm actually fighting the local countries. Okay, right? Maybe it's worth it. It's very scary, very scary. Anyway. Oh, Misha. So Misha, who's our Russian friend who joins us on a VPN, so he's hopefully protected, is just saying over on YouTube, there's a round of mobilization in Russia soon, meaning for the war. Not sure what parts. My wife is worried I will be mobilized since my military background. Anything is possible. Yeah, I mean, Putin is supposedly rounding up like 30,000 new fighters a month, So Putin's ill health, we don't know. I mean, again, there are rumors about Putin's health. The thing you got to keep in mind is the rumors about Putin's health include, that he has cancer. Well, people with cancer don't necessarily die, right? Thank you, Jen. Or even people with terminal cancer can live 5 years, 10 years or longer, right? So it's not, right? Even if he's sick, just because he's sick doesn't mean he's going anywhere, Yeah, exactly, Azui. Exactly. Exactly. He'll solve it like that. I haven't seen the Russian entries in I never watched Eurovision until the last 2 years, and the Russians weren't there the last 2 years. I never saw I never watched it before, so I don't know who the Russian entry. Somebody was asking if I liked the Russian entries in Eurovision before. I never saw it. So, don't know. Vass, I'm the kind of person who doesn't vote for traitors. So yeah, I'm the kind of person who believes in democracy, doesn't believe in violently overthrowing the government. I don't believe in things like that. So that is the kind of person I am. Yes. I'm also the kind of person that believes in defending our allies, that believes in standing up to our enemies. Yeah. Guilty. Always have been. I have never been a pushover when it comes to foreign policy. And I have always believed in defending America's values and America's friends. Always. And some people on the left don't like that, except now it's people on the right. So, what do you know? Yes, correct, Stacy. The Russians have not been in Eurovision like the last 2 years at least. 2 years? 2 years. This is the third year. That because of the invasion, yeah. So, oh God, we're already an hour and a half. Well, I didn't realize we went on for that long. Wow. So, anyway, all right, guys, I may do a quick summary and then be done for the night here. Let me do that. I'll do the quick summary. We sort of do the, it depends. Pray says, do you think the best foreign policy is an offensive one? No, not necessarily. No. Offensive meaning versus defensive. No, it depends. I mean, again, it depends, right? I mean, again, I worry whether our overlords don't like conversations like this, so I'm trying to be careful how I say this, but, you get involved in battles you have to get involved in, and you don't get involved in the ones you don't have to get involved in. You simply do a national interest analysis. and you say, is it in America's national interest to get involved in Ukraine? If Ukraine were to lose the war and Russia took it over, is that a threat to American national interests? And you do that analysis, and you analyze, what does it mean for Russia in the future? What does it mean in terms of Russia and what they will do vis-a-vis the rest of Europe, via our allies, against our allies that we are committed to defending in war, right? And you do that analysis and you decide whether it's important that we get involved or not. Sometimes that means you get involved. Other times it means you sit back. So I would not say it means you're more like gung-ho to do stuff, but it means you're not afraid to do stuff. And I think Biden's a little afraid to do stuff, personally. For my taste, he is. He's afraid. He's done a lot, but he's still afraid. And Putin knows he is. And Putin plays him left and right. And I worry the Chinese, I think initially the Chinese learned a good lesson from Biden and the world, that we would all stand up and defend if they did something bad. Now the lesson is he'll only go so far because he's afraid, from my opinion. So, don't know about it, Tudor, but sounds good to me. Don't know about it, though. Anyway, all right, guys, let me do a quick summary of the news, and then we'll go. It's been an hour and a half, so I usually like to kind of go an hour and a half, and that's it. Today's day 768 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. Thank you, Jin, for the good evening, son. The Washington Post reports that the U.S. gave Putin the exact venue that ISIS was going to attack. We gave them a number of different venues, and we included the Crocus City Hall in our warning 2 weeks before the Russian terrorist attack. And what do you know? It's exactly where ISIS attacked. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Jin, for the gifts. This is important because a top Russian official claimed yet again today that the U.S. did not give specific enough intelligence, and that's why Putin, 3 days before the attack in Moscow, thank you, Maita, 3 days before the attack in Moscow, Putin said that the American warning and the British warning of the imminent attack was BS and a lie, because we weren't specific enough. So U.S. officials turned around and said, no, we actually told you the specific hall that the attack, well, we gave you a couple different places, but we included that hall as one of the specific places he was going to attack. And you didn't listen. Chris, thank you. Very nice gift, Chris, and pretty one too. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Drones. We then talked a lot about drones. Ukraine attacked Russia's third largest oil refinery in the Tatarstan region, east of Moscow, more than 1,100 kilometers or 700 miles away from Ukraine. They attacked a Russian oil refinery, and they also attacked the Russian Shahed drone factory, which is a big deal. We then talked about a CNN story about the Ukrainians using more and more artificial intelligence in their drones, and that Reuters calculates that the Russians have now lost 14% of their refining capacity in Ukrainian attacks. Beep, 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 beep. The U.S. not happy about the Ukrainian attacks because we're worried about oil prices going up, and we're worried about escalation and angering Vladimir Putin. Financial Times, NATO is drawing up plans to secure a 5-year military aid package of up to $100 billion in an attempt to shield Ukraine from the winds of political change. Ukraine has destroyed a record 976 Russian artillery systems in March, according to the Ukrainians. Russia has painted decoy aircraft on more than a dozen of its air bases in a bid to deceive Ukrainian forces, but then botched the entire thing by parking helicopters on top of the fake aircraft, making it clear that they weren't really aircraft. That was kind of a mistake. And finally, Germany has pledged 180,000 rounds of artillery shells as part of a Czech-led initiative to provide Ukraine with more ammunition. All right. Okay, guys, as I said, we've been doing this an hour and a half. I don't want to mess with, I can even feel my voice a little bit, so I don't want to mess with my voice. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, mods. Thank you, everybody. I will be back tomorrow night, Wednesday, at 6 o'clock Eastern Time, U.S. Thank you, user 336. 6 o'clock Eastern Time, U.S. That's 6 o'clock Washington, D.C. time. And we will cover the latest from Ukraine again. And well, there you go. So thank you, guys. Thank you for some of the gift memberships I saw you guys did. Actually, gift membership and a new, very generous member over on YouTube. And all the crazy gifts. You guys were amazing today on TikTok as well. So thank you for that. All right, guys. You are very welcome, Fred. Thank you, mods. And I'm going to go put on a frozen pizza because I'm starving. So Voila. All right. Have a good night, guys. Thank you all so much. I've started.